Okay, so this is the alternate timeline. This is the multiverse. This is differing realities going out there and presenting themselves. Because today we're going to be talking about a guy that every single NHL insider, analyst, YouTuber, commenter, everybody on the planet that knows about the situation is saying is going to be a Canadian. He's not a Canadian right now. He's a Winnipeg Jet, but with his RFA negotiation process going on, it's very widely speculated he signs a one-year deal with Winnipeg, eventually goes to UFA status in 2024, and then signs with the Habs. We're going over Pierre-Luc Dubois, ladies and gentlemen, and this is not a surprise. However, the reason we're talking about Dubois in this video is because of whatever other alternate possibilities present themselves when it comes to Dubois re-signing as an RFA. Now, the Winnipeg Jets in the postseason got eliminated in 5 games. They played off against the Vegas Golden Knights. They kind of fumbled the bag towards the end of the series, not gonna lie. But Pierre-Luc Dubois in the sample did have 4 points in 5 games. Not an amazing point production number for a guy that's supposed to be a top player on the team, but it's good enough. I mean, the guy's making $6 million a year, so having that sort of a contribution is not the worst thing in the world. But of course, he is an RFA, so he's going to need to re-sign, and it's quite likely, according to all the insiders, that he may just sign for a one-year deal. Who really knows? Dubois this season had 63 points in 73 games played, so he's a pretty alright player, definitely a top 6 caliber center who's got two-way capabilities and a wavering work ethic, to put it lightly. When it comes to Dubois, though, because he is from Quebec, and because we have had so many rumors over the past few years that he wants to play for the Habs, this is always sort of the thought process that goes on when Dubois' name is brought up. However, we're going over to a Winnipeg Jets mailbag by Ken Wiebe. This was published on May 11th. What does Connor Hellebuyck's next contract look like? Now, because it's a mailbag, you know how it works. Readers ask the writer questions, and the writer goes out there and answers them. We're not talking about Connor Hellebuyck in this video today, but what we are doing is we're scrolling down towards the end-ish part of the article and going over what exactly it is that Wiebe writes about when it comes to Dubois. Take a look at the question asked here by Carey. Are the Boston Bruins the frontrunners in landing Pierre-Luc Dubois? And do you think they have enough to offer the Jets in draft picks, considering they don't have any first-rounders the next few years? Now, pause. What is the thought process behind this here? The idea is, right now, before Pierre-Luc Dubois signs that extension, maybe there's a team or two that goes out and trades for him, re-signs him themselves, and then tries to go on a run in 2024. Now, whether or not they re-sign him to a long-term deal, which is unlikely based off of everything we're assuming here, or they sign him to a short-term deal which takes him to UFA status anyway, and they're willing to take that risk because they like Dubois enough as a player, that remains to be seen, but that's the overall thought process behind this question. Let's read what Ken Wiebe has to say. Not sure the Bruins would be considered a frontrunner, though the potential departure of Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci means that replenishing the center position will be a high priority for them. Dubois' style would certainly be a fit for the Bruins, but that could be said for most, if not all, teams in the NHL. Nice point there, Ken. If Dubois is looking for a contract north of $8 million on his next long-term extension, which he probably is, it's going to be a tight fit on the salary cap, unless the Bruins are able to shed salary, and the trade terms could be challenging as well. What might they be willing to offer? Only Bruins GM Don Sweeney knows for sure, but after a record-setting regular season and a first-round exit, they'll be looking to remain in the contender category. Now, pause. The $8 million per season argument is only really there if Dubois goes long-term. I don't really see if this is a short-term deal, Dubois signing something in the $8 million range, maybe more 6.57, but if there even is a possibility of Dubois wanting to sign long-term with a team that trades for him, that's a different conversation. A lot of contending teams will be looking at Dubois even if it's for one shot at a Stanley Cup run. But his appeal is enhanced if he's interested in signing with the team that trades for him. The Colorado Avalanche are another team that will be looking for a second-line center behind McKinnon, especially with Captain Gabe Landeskog lost for next season after undergoing another knee surgery. The Canadiens still look like the frontrunner for Dubois, but it's not a Habs or bust scenario. An Eastern Conference team within the vicinity of New York is the most likely outcome, though the LA Kings are my sleeper. And this is where things get interesting, because it's not necessarily a writer from Toronto or Montreal going out there saying this. Ken Wiebe normally does Winnipeg stuff. So it's interesting to say that, from his perspective, the most likely team that Dubois goes to is somewhere in the New York vicinity. So New York, New Jersey, one of these three teams, who really knows if that is the target there. But when it comes to other teams, I mean, the LA Kings presenting themselves as a one-stop shop for Pierre-Luc Dubois, that's an interesting one too. All in all, though, you have to ask, essentially, what are these teams willing to pay for what is essentially a rental player? A one-year rental that you have to re-sign at the beginning of the season that you get for the whole season at the very least. Now, of course, if he's willing to sign long-term, that's a completely other conversation, but based off of everything we have been told by other analysts, I think it's sort of, it's easier to say, okay, he's probably going to sign 1 year. 1 year, short term, and then go to free agency where he goes to Montreal next year. That seems like the most likely scenario. But if you're an LA Kings team that has been pretty good at retooling on the fly and suffering back-to-back first-round exits to the Oilers, do you want to go out there and get yourselves a big fish? You got Fiala last year. He did pretty all right. Do you want to go for Dubois this year? If you're the Boston Bruins and you're really adamant that you got to improve your center core after Bergeron and Krejci leave, you got to work the money out before making a trade for Dubois. But it's possible. Is this something you want to go out there and try to explore? If you're Colorado and you weren't able to capitalize on some of the other centers around the NHL, you didn't get Bo Horvat, you didn't get Sean Monahan, what's your thought process there now that you're really just giving it to McKinnon to do everything and Newhook didn't necessarily step up in the way that you thought he should have been able to as well? If Pierre-Luc Dubois is your guy, what do you give up for that? And would you be willing to expend the assets if you know he's only going to be around for one season? Next up for New York, and New Jersey, I mean, the New York Rangers, they have the benefit because it seems like every player wants to go there, so I mean, that might be a different conversation compared to all the other teams. New Jersey, y'all just had a great season, but do you want to go after a guy in Pierre-Luc Dubois when you have still to re-sign Bratt and Timo Meier? That's an entirely other conversation that you need to address first before you go out there looking at other players. And then for the Islanders, I mean, this is a team that I feel like Dubois could play pretty all right within because they play boring hockey. Sure, they're a lot more, let's say, dynamic than they were under Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz had the full-on defensive style going for them, and admittedly it worked. It was just kind of boring to watch. But do they want to go out there and try to bolster their offense in the process? Barzal and Horvat can't get it done by themselves, man. So is Dubois the answer there? Not to mention the fact that you still have to go out there and ask the Winnipeg fans, what are your opinions about Dubois getting traded sometime within the next little while here before you have to go through that RFA negotiation process and before you even sign the contract? Would you rather go down this route? Let some other team deal with Dubois leaving their organization and get some draft picks and other things in return when you're in this process of potentially... Do I want to use the word rebuild? I don't know. A lot of Jets fans are saying they need to blow up the core, so let's just say that. Rebuild. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this entire idea of Dubois going to another team before Montreal. If you're a Habs fan, you're probably not even caring about this. I think a lot of Canadiens fans sort of internalized the idea that Dubois was going to become a Canadian in 2024, so you're not even really stressing because you just got to wait. Either way, if he plays in Winnipeg, New Jersey, New York, Colorado, LA, or Boston, doesn't matter. In your mind, he's still going to Montreal next year. But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Dubois and this entire idea. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 9, and bye.